Right, here's a little thing I'd like to show you. This, for those of you who remember Doctor Who, would know that this is Doctor Who's companion dog K9. Now this actually is a remote controlled version, as you can see here. Now he has got, or when I bought him at auction for I think it was £8, he had the two ears, little radar ears he's got sitting in there. Now again, this is a remote controlled version. Just to let you hear him. Hold on. He's got a power button on there.
Power supply failing. Capacity for any one shot master. A maximum impact. I must be stationed directly beside the bat.
So he does work, but I picked him up from the auction, put him in the back of the van, and when I got in home and unpacked him the next day, one of his ears was missing. They just pull in and out. So somewhere between the auction, which I bidded on, I went to the viewing day basically, and at the viewing day he had both antennas in there, and when I got home, obviously it bidded on the auction automatically for the internet. You don't know because all they're showing you is a picture of the item. So between the Friday of the viewing and the Saturday I won it online, and I went to pick it up on the Sunday. And when I picked him up, I'm sure he had both ears fitted, but I could be wrong. Basically, I was in a situation where I only had the one ear, and that devalues his price considerably to about £4 or £5, as compared to about £25 to £35. So I was in a situation of trying to locate an ear. Now the chances of me finding one is pretty remote. So there is an alternative. What I've done, oh, if I just show you, let's move him to one side for a minute. I'll stand him over there. I've decided that I will make a mould of the actual good ear. I don't know if you can see there, I've actually put the good ear inside this mould here. And what I'm going to do is to make a silicone cast of the good ear and make, obviously, the other ear. Now the only problem I've got here, as you can see, there's the actual thing stuck in some modelling clay at the moment. I've just pushed it halfway in. But you can see that the actual stem that goes into the actual robot's head is going towards the left. So it's basically, as it sits in the robot, it stands at an angle. So the one on the other side, it would have to be the other way. So I've got to actually mould this, and from this mould I've got to make a cut in the mould. Once I've made the mould, flip it over so that this angle is on the other side. So that's what I'm going to be doing. So I've just made up, out of some basic plasticine, this is, well, modelling clay. Love the smell of that. Remember, it takes me back to when I was at school. So basic modelling clay. Now normally, because if I actually poured silicone over this, I couldn't pull it out once I'd actually made the mould. You have to make what they call a two-part mould. So that's what I'm in the process of doing at the moment. So basically what you do, you get some modelling clay. I've embedded the antenna halfway in to the modelling clay, and then basically what I've done, I've just created a little box around it so that I can actually pour the rubber solution over the top, and it'll only cover half of the actual item. And then what I'll do, I'll pull it out, and then I'll pull the plasticine away, turn the mould over, and then I'll pour on the back side of it, and that will give me two halves of a mould. And if you can see there, what I've actually done, I've just got the pencil and I've just put in two little holes in that side of the mould, so that when I make this cast into the plasticine and pull away, it will have two little locating pins, so when I put the both together they'll actually match up exactly. So that is what I've done there. So that's that ready to be poured. And the way you can get away with doing this sort of stuff now, you can buy these sort of kits. Now this is a general purpose RTV silicone rubber and a hardener. I think it's a 10-to-1 mix, I can't remember. So basically you put 10 parts of this down and 1 part of this, and that gives you a silicone rubber mould which you can use over and over again. So once I've actually created the 2 halves of the mould, what you want to do then is to actually create the plastic item, and you do that by mixing these 2 chemicals together. These again is a part A and part B. It's a 50-50 mix, 1-to-1 volume, so I mix half and half, mix it up well, and then once I've made the mould, as I said to you, you pour this liquid in very, very gently, because you don't want no air bubbles. Once it's made, give it probably, I don't know, till it goes milky white, and then it is ready to be pulled out, and then you can spray it. What you can actually do as well, I mean, I've bought 2 colour pigments here which you can add to the plastic. I've got a blue pigment and a black pigment. So I mean, if you're actually making parts of a certain colour, you can buy these in most of the primary colours: black, blue, red, green, yellow. So you won't have to spray them afterwards. But because I'm spraying this will have to be sprayed silver. As you can see, the original part is silver. I'm just going to leave the actual item clear. So that is the kit. That's what's available, and I'll show you the procedure now of actually pouring the mould so you can see what to do. Right, so basically we have our mould, and what we need to now do is to mix up enough silicone moulding solution where we're not wasting stuff, because this is actually quite expensive stuff. So you want to use it sparingly, and you want to be mixing up the right amount. So the way I'm going to find that out is basically to pour something over our actual mould to the height which I want, and then I will weigh that out, and that will give me the quantities which I'm going to need, so I can actually mix out the near enough accurate quantities. So the way to do that is to get some sort of product. Now I'm going to use rice here, and what I'm going to basically do is to pour a quantity of rice, put it on the flat surface, and pour a quantity of rice over the mould, over our item, and I'm just going to shake it flat. I'm going to need a bit more in there because I've got this just a little bit of thing sticking through at the top. That should probably be enough. Let's just bring that flat. Just lay that all down flat in there. Again, just settle the rice. Now that probably looks about enough in there. So that is the sort of quantity I'm talking about. So what I want to do now is to weigh that, and it's handy to have a set of either garden scales, or these are a set of postage scales I use, digital postage scales that measure in grams. It's better to do it in grams, it's more accurate. So what I want to basically do is to find out how much weight in rice I've actually got in that cup there, and the way to do that is to obviously find a measuring container. Now before I actually turn the scales on, put your container on there so that when I turn it on it actually weighs and zeroes up with that container on, because I don't want the weight of the container. So I'm now turning on. The scales have just set themselves and calibrated themselves, and I'm now going to pour in all that rice. There we go, all the rice has come out, as you can see, and I've now got a weight. If I just show you that, you can see there I've got a total weight of rice of 48 grams. So because it is a 10-to-1 ratio, 48 grams of rice, 10% of that is 4.8. So that is our solution. I can put that back in the bag. Don't forget you can use this rice over and over again. So what I basically need, again I want to turn that off. I need to put that on there again and turn that on. So I've got 48 grams of my rubber solution in there. And to that 48 grams, I now want to put 4.8 grams of hardener. That will give me my 10-to-1 mix. So if I turn that off again, and then turn it on, it will zero back to nothing with that in there. There we go, it's set back to 0. I now want to add 4.8 grams of the mould solution, hardener. So 4.8 grams. Oh, I've gone over the top there. That is 6 grams. So I'm just going to turn that off, and now I'm going to mix that solution totally. Now with this solution, you need to mix this so you don't see any streaks at all. It wants to be one uniform colour. If you have any streaks in there, I'm afraid it won't work. The mould agent won't work. So again, one uniform colour is what we're looking for. And again, you're going to get air bubbles in this, and the way you pour it will determine how good the mould comes out. So I'm happy with that. Just turn that off for there like that. Right. So what I'm going to do now, let's get them scales out of the way. Now I don't know if you can see in there, but there's loads of air bubbles come to the surface. Now that is why you've got to be very careful how you pour this. Now what I'm looking at doing, let me try and get you a bit nearer. Now what we're looking at doing is to pour this starting from possibly the lowest point. Now what I'm going to actually do is to pour this actually from a height. And the reason why I'm pouring it from a height is to stop the air bubbles from collecting. Now can you see that? I'm just introducing a nice soft gentle stream and allowing the liquid to find its own level. Now if you could see this higher up here, I'm actually pouring it from about 2 foot in height, and as you can see I'm pouring it very slowly. And what happens is as the air bubbles drop out of the actual container, on their way down they get so fine that they actually pop. But you have to do this when pouring using this method in a place where there's no wind, because any wind at all will blow that thin stream of rubber solution and you won't get a proper moulding because of air bubbles. Again, I'm just letting it edge its way in there, fill the mould. It's finding its own level, it's creeping over our model. And as I said, you don't forget we're only casting half of this actual model. When you're making larger moulds, you have to be careful of air bubbles, because any air bubbles at all caught or trapped will ruin the reproduction of the model. So pouring from a great height, it takes a bit of time and it might seem a bit tedious, but it actually ensures a great reproduction without any air bubbles. Now, if those of you who are making moulds on a regular basis, you'll probably know that another way of doing this is to buy what they call some sort of vacuum pump system, where you actually pour the mould like I'm doing now, and then you place the object into a sealed chamber, and then you use a vacuum chamber to actually pull the air out. Now we're not far off it now. as you can see, the quantity is near enough perfect. I'm just going to help encourage that out now with the spatula. We've covered all the mould now, so I'm not really too bothered about the last few dribbles. I just want to get the latex out of the container before it starts to harden. There we go. Now them last few air bubbles I've got on the top there is just from me pouring that larger amount. See, that's the sort of thing that would happen if you poured it fast into the mould, like I've just done now with the last bit. I'm not too worried about, as I said to you, the last bit, because that was just covering or making the weight up of the actual unit. So yeah, there we go. That's our mould poured now. Always clean your tools up afterwards. So we'll just let that go off now, and then we'll have a look at it, and then we'll make the second part of the mould.